I wanted to kind of share with you guys some insider secrets that I learned about how the rich continue to get wealthy and create wealthy in their lives, man. It's crazy because when I was younger, I mean, you guys probably heard the same thing too. Like, work hard, get good grades, go to school, buy a house, like, save your money, pay off all your bills. Like, that is not what rich and wealthy people do, or that's not what rich people do to build wealth for themselves. And I'm going to go over a couple of things that I learned being in the real estate business, dealing with people who have a lot of investments, a lot of assets. They make a lot of money in their businesses and their real estate and how they play the game, and they do it without their own money. So, um, number one, I'm going to go over a couple of things with you guys. So, the rich business owners, they focus on three things. They focus on number one, they focus on income or revenue. They focus on business and income revenue. They're constantly scaling and growing the income and the revenue from their business. I'm gonna move my microphone back over here. So they do things a lot differently. They focus on different versions of income. So number one, they focus on if you have a business, you're a doctor, you're a professional, you're in financial services and sales, maybe you're a plumber, HVAC company. You need to focus on increasing the revenue of the company. Number one. Number two, they focus on passive income. And we're talking about how the rich get wealthy. They continue. So they focus on income and passive income. That's from taking their hard-earned money from their businesses, running their businesses, and then they move that money into something that pays them passive income. So it works harder for them than they could have worked for their money, right? And then number three thing that they focus on is equity buildup. So they have two equity pieces that they focus on. One, they focus on equity in their business, and they focus on equity in their assets, right? And this is really the game, but how the most of the people I know that have business owners, this is how they play their game, right? Because most of my investors either own a business, they're entrepreneurs, or they're professionals. So that's one of the things I wanted to kind of go over. They don't focus on one income. Usually, most people, business owners or whatever, they only focus on one of these. Maybe they'll focus on passive income, so they're working their butt off, and they don't focus on earning more revenue in their business, meaning scaling their business, growing their business, things like that. Or they'll be like, hey, I'm just going to focus on building equity. That's what we were taught as kids. Buy a house. Is a house going to be your best investment? Let me tell you, the worst investment you can ever make is a home, right? That was a product of the banks. The banks were like, hey, let's get people to get a mortgage. We'll finance these houses so they can pay for it. We'll do it over 30 years. We'll trap them in one location. They can't move. They can't do nothing else. And they'll continue to pay us. Like that was a play maybe for your grandparents or your great grandparents, but probably not for you. So think about that. A home is the worst investment you're going to make. It is not a great investment. And if you're thinking like a wealthy business owner, you're trying to create wealth for you and your family, you need to think about both these incomes, not just the one. All right. That's how things go from rich to creating wealth. So the other thing that they do so we're going to talk about that. Run everything through their business, right? So maybe they have an LLC, and then what they'll do is they'll take their income and then they'll go get debt against their income, right? So let's say, for example, these guys are making $1 million, $2 million, $5 million in revenue a year net, and they have a bunch of money sitting around. That money on their LLC, they'll go to their bank and borrow against their money, the income that they have, or the cash that they got sitting in their accounts. This is one of the so and then naturally, if they're borrowing this pays for marketing, this pays for salespeople and employees. This may pay for like operations, this may pay for equipment, whatever that is for them. But when they do this, they're leaving their cash balances or their income that they're borrowing with going to their bank, and they're getting this money, they're borrowing against that money. They still have this money, right? This money's still sitting, and they don't need to deplete their cash revenues or their reserves or their incomes or the surplus of money they have. They can just borrow the money. And if they think that they're like, hey, look, I'm going to borrow this money's coming in, it's sitting. I'm going to borrow this money at like 6, 7%, but I'm going to triple this money and I'm going to pay this money back. And oh, by the way, I still got my money. That's how they're borrowing against their business, their LLC, based on the income of their LLCs because they're focusing on the income now, right? And then they're making more money in their business, and then they're investing that additional money that they made by paying off their debt, or they go back into a passive income situation like something we do. Maybe they'll invest with Bell Capital. They'll put it into a cash flow or income producing multifamily deal. And that money now is making money on top of itself while the equity builds up in the property because we're increasing the rents. So that's one way to do that. Next thing that they do is I'm going through this pretty quickly, but I want you guys to kind of get how the wealthy are playing this game without their own money. So the next thing that they do is rather than use their credit, right? They use their schedule of assets, right? A schedule of assets for real estate is they can be like, hey, this is the real estate we own, this is our stocks, right? This is our cash accounts. This is let's just say this is some other stuff. Let's say our business, right? Because your uh business is not you. It's a separate entity. It has its own EIN number. So these guys are like, hey, look, my business makes money. We have cash accounts sitting. They don't actually like cash accounts. Nobody, no bank wants to see your liquidity, but they want to see it. So you can put it there. You have your stocks and then you have your real estate holdings, right? And what they want to see in your real estate holdings is they want to see cash flow coming in. And this is the best one if you're going to look at your schedule of assets. You can have bonds, you can have money market accounts, which this is where that'll be. Money market, right? Oh, I forgot. You also have your IRA, your retirement. This is also money, which is also like a savings account. So they're going to want to see your schedule of assets. Hey, he's got real estate, he's got stocks, he's got cash in a money market account earning, he's got his business that creates revenue, and then he also has an IRA or his retirement accounts. If you're a business owner, you're probably going to use a SEP. You're going to use your self-employed pension fund or whatever they're called. They used to be called a KEO. So like you're going to have all of these things. That's not including any life insurance policies, wholesale policies, policies that you can borrow against, the whole infinite banking thing that everyone likes to do, where they're using like it's a universal life policy. They can borrow against it at zero interest and whatever, and then they can use that money for investments and things like that. So they'll want to see that. I'll write that here. We'll just put insurance. But this is also, so what'll happen is they'll go to a lender and say, hey, here's my schedule of assets and I want to borrow. We want to borrow against it. Right? Borrow what? For what? They're better. Most of the time, they're going to lend you money to either scale and move back into your business, or they're going to give you money to be able to invest in a real estate deal, buy your own real estate, whatever you're going to do. But again, because you're using your balance sheet or your schedule of assets, you're borrowing more money. This is how the wealthy continue to get wealthy. Rather than use their own money, like I said on the other one, use your business, show how much revenue you have coming in, your cash accounts, borrow against it. Now you can borrow against your schedule of assets. All right. So that's another way that they do that. Um, Now, what's the purpose of all this? Let's say you are sitting on, I don't know, let's say you're sitting on $1 million. Boom. We've been using that a lot lately. Let's say you have $1 million in a retirement account or cash, right? You want to put that in something that's making 5% in a real estate deal that's making 5% on your money, right? Because the number one thing you're looking for, one, you're looking for capital preservation. Number two, you're looking for cash flow. This is how the wealthy create wealth, and they have their money work hard for them, but they don't always use their own money, right? So then you have your capital preservation, you got cash flow coming up, you got appreciation, right? Now, there's a key to appreciation. We're not talking about like a single family house where the neighbors can sell, yours goes up based on them, because the reverse is true too. Your neighbor could sell for less because they owe less than you and they can take a hit. And now the value of your property now is in jeopardy. You've lost your equity. You didn't do nothing. But we're talking about forced appreciation, which happens in multifamily properties, in big, larger properties where we can increase the income of the property and that forces the value of the property up. And then last but not least, they use leverage. That's what we're talking about today. Borrowing money, like getting into deals without using your own money. That doesn't mean no money. That means leveraging what you have to get more money. So in this situation, let's say you take your $1 million, you're preserving your capital, right? Because this $1 million is going down in value every year, and you're converting your fiat cash money out of a bank and savings into a real asset, which is what banks want to see. Now, this property is giving you, let's say it's kicking out 5% a year in cash flow. And then because this is what we do. We want to know that we can get a 5% increase later, somewhere down the road, maybe not when we get it, but maybe like 5 years in, 3 years in, 2 years in. I assume we're going to get no rent increases for the first 2 years of a deal, 1 year of a deal. And let's say we had to hold it and we still want it. But then I start playing with it. Hey, do I think we can increase the rents on this property $100, $75, $200? What can we do? So, and when, right? So let's say we did that. Another 5% on the increase. This is an increase on our money, right? I'm sharing with you guys how rich people get wealthy, how wealth of rich business owners also create wealth by doing this thing. Now we have this forced appreciation, which is where that comes in. So the value, there's a new increased value based on the new increased income. That's a new increase. So now we have this new increased income. Oh, by the way, if you were to invest $1 million, boom, in in a deal, your $1 million with good leverage takes on a $3 million position. Your business can't do that, right? You can only invest money in your business and then work your ass off and hope that it works. But if you invest money in a real estate deal, that $1 million now turns into $3 million position in a real estate deal if you do it right, like the things that we do at Bell Capital. But this is how the wealthy does it. So they'll take $1 million, now it's worth three. They have leverage, good leverage, because now there's debt on there. They focus on increasing the new increased value based on the new increased income that they're going to do, which is raising the rents, taking care of people, going from there. And they're already going into the deal to make sure that there's a 5% return on their money, or it gets to 5% at some point. And oh, I left this off. And inside of all this, they want to see tax bennies, the tax bennies. So, and then also the whole goal of this whole thing, because you're investing in real estate, is you get the pass through benefits of the tax benefits of that depreciation, cost segregation, breaking this property down. So, some of this 5% or the 5% that you may be getting on your money may be non-taxable, maybe tax free or tax deferred, so you don't have to pay the taxes on it. And then later, let's say we sell the property, you get your $1 million back, or we refinance the property, you get your $1 million. Maybe that's non-taxable because we refinanced it out, right? We're talking about how the rich use zero money of their own money and they create wealth. And that's how you do it. You refinance, take your money out. That's non-taxable. You keep it. Now you still have the asset, which is what we look to do in Bell Capital and all of our deals. And later, when you sell, you might be able to use the 1031 exchange, which is what the wealthy also do. So that's another tax strategy. People are using it less and less nowadays. But the 1031 exchange is a way for you to actually take your gains and roll it into a like kind property and not have to pay taxes on that money that you made and then kick that can down the road. And you can keep doing that for a long time. So this is how the wealthy continue to do it. Number one, they focus on three incomes, not one. Where are we at on there? They focus on three separate incomes. Yeah. They focus on increasing their income, working income, or the whatever from their business, passive income, because they need to focus on those two. They got to be working all at one time and building up equity. And the way that they do that is one, they focus on their business. Maybe they take the cash, money that they've been putting off to the side outside of their revenues. They go back to their lender or their bank and they want to see you constantly making it. That's why this is important. You got to have money coming in. These are deposits. They're not looking at the cash holdings. They're looking at, hey, we keep having money coming into this business over and over and over again, depositing, depositing, depositing. And the banks look at that and go, well, yeah, man, we'll give you some money. So could be subscription, could be memberships, it could be contractual, it could be residual income. Maybe you're in insurance and you get money one point, and then this money continues to kick over because you have your residuals. As long as your clients are still paying in, that happens. Tenants are like that, where there's a constant monthly income, and that money goes into our bank, and then naturally the banks looks at that, and says, "Hey, every month there's making deposits here." And then the equity. This right here, people like to talk about it in a bad way. Oh, you can't spend equity. Yeah, you can. If you go borrow it, you're getting an advance on your future cash flow equity, and you're taking that now and you're replenishing what you had, and that's a non-taxable event. So focus on the three incomes. Focus on your business. If you're going to borrow money, this is how wealthy do it. They don't use their own money. They use the money they have and then they borrow against that. And then next, they can borrow credit against their schedule of assets. So now they use their schedule of assets, real estate, stock holdings, bonds, gold, Bitcoin, crypto, whatever, their actual cash. Maybe it's in a money market account, a saving account. They maybe have CDs or something. And then they have their business, which has its own separate ID, but it's still on their balance, it's still on their schedule of assets because it's producing money. And their insurance, if they have insurance policies that they're able to borrow against, listed on their schedule of assets, as well as their IRA retirement account money that's sitting and that's still employed. Um, you can borrow against that. A lot of people do that. Banks will be like, hey, This guy's credit, he has schedule of assets. You don't need to be credit worthy. You need to be schedule of asset worthy. All right. This is how people get big deals done in the real world and create wealth for themselves. And like we said, now we have this money. How do they do it? They take $1 million. And if this bugs you, just drop a zero. Take $100,000 and do the same thing. 100,000, 5%, right? It gives you what you're going to get. 5,000 a year, 50,000, 50,000 over 10 years. And with an additional 5%, that's another 25,000 over 10 years. So you've already made $75,000 if you only had $100,000 invested. You know the value of the deal that you invested in is going to go up. So later when we refinance, you're going to get your 100 grand back. You already got 75,000 of your 100 grand back. So now you're what, 275% made whole, and you did nothing. You just invested some money. You wrote a check, somebody else did the work like me, found the deal, funded the deal, managed the deal, sent you a check every year, send you a check every month. I'm sorry, every year, and it all tallies up. Did you get the tax benefits, the appreciation, the leverage with us, the write-offs, the protection? You don't have to do anything. And this deal, this opportunity, again, while you're building your equity, cash flow, it covers all three of those incomes we were talking about. This goes on your schedule of assets under your real estate holdings. It doesn't need to be your real estate. It could be an investment that you make in a real estate as a business partner. You go, look, I have 100,000. I got $1 million invested in a piece of real estate. This is the income that it brings in. This is the tax benefits that I get from it. It becomes a part of your schedule of assets or your schedule of real estate if you have a bunch of real estate. So this is how the wealthy create more. This is how rich create wealth without using any of their own money. Like we weren't taught this all the time. You don't realize that your business can generate its own revenue without money. Your real estate can generate its own revenue without money. Your money can create its own revenue without money by using debt, good debt, right? Know that you have money coming in. You don't just go get debt for the sake of debt, and no bank's going to give you bad debt for the sake of debt. They're going to make sure to be like, hey, can this business owner produce something? That's why rich business owners create wealth because they take their business, they go to their lenders or their bank and they borrow money against the revenues that they have coming, and then they invest that money into something else, their business or more real estate, or they take their cash that's sitting and they invest that into something that produces for them. And that's what I would suggest most people do. So look, I'm not saying go out there and get a shit ton of debt. What I am saying is use your resources wisely because you cannot create wealth if you don't invest. And if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, you're a doctor, you own an HVAC company, you own a plumbing company, electrical company, you own financial services company, you're in hair, you're in teeth, whatever it is, you're a doctor. Like you should be investing. Look, man, I'm begging you. Start creating wealth for you and your family. This is how it works. Rich people have been doing this for a long time. They build wealth. You just see them as rich, but what you don't see behind the scenes is they're playing this game to win it, and you can too. That's why I created Bell Capital because I wanted to create a vehicle to let the everyday investors like you see at least see the game or have a chance at the game based on some of the deals that we're looking at because we're looking at institutional quality assets that the little guy doesn't get access to. All the deals that I look at and compete on, they're owned and operated by other companies that their partners, their investors are institutions or they're institutions already. The little guy will never get a phone call about that deal. I want to change that. I want to revolutionize the way that you and me get opportunities. It's personal for me. I want those deals. So I'm just looking to partner with my audience, my friends. You guys are my friends officially because when you follow me online, we know each other. My friends, my family are part of my family officially. So if you're part of my family, put it in the comments, man. I want to see that. But I'm here for you. I want to do deals with you. I want to help you and your family get invested and start creating wealth for your families. This isn't just some game. I'm not just making videos to make videos. I'm really doing this because I hope that I resonate with somebody. It's my purpose. But the other piece, the real piece for me, is I want to change your financial condition by helping you get invested in these deals. So if you have questions about this, let me know. Again, focus on the three revenues. Your working income or your business income, you got to go and you got to pump and hustle and grind, make that money. You're going to focus on your passive income through investments and real estate. And then you want to focus on equity buildup in your own company because the revenues are going up and in your passive investments in real estate deals because we can force appreciation in those deals. That's how you build your equity in the deals. And that's how you turn $100,000 into 300,000 or you turn $1 million into $3 million with the leverage. Like that's the goal of this. You want to create wealth. because you want to be able to realize this in your lifetime. You owe it to your family to create wealth, generational wealth for you guys, and you cannot do that in any other vehicle that I think is better than real estate. Income producing, multifamily real estate in great locations, great cities that are going to continue to happen, right? So I appreciate you. I hope this helps. And I know I went through this pretty quickly. I got other trainings on that when we talk about wealthy business owners, how business owners create wealth. I talked through it quite a bit, but this is exactly how rich create wealth and use zero of their own money. And if you were playing this game instead of the game we were taught from a middle class mom and dad or family, aunt, uncle, hey, work hard, go to school, get a degree, buy a house, stay stuck, pay off all your bills, have zero debt. That is not wealth. That is a nightmare. Trust me. All right. So let me know if you need anything, guys. Like the video, share this video, comment on the video. Let's get after it today. Boom.